Now, so is there something they should say though, kind of coming full circle, given that the economic issues are so are less divisive than the cultural ones? Should they? Is there? Would you recommend that or Biden say, "I support"? I don't know what
Sure. I
protecting
mean, like, here's the thing. How is this guy? The thing with Biden and the court is, right, he said, I don't want to take a position on expanding the court. And previously he said, I don't want to expand the court. Meanwhile, he's campaigning as like Mr. Working Class. I'm like pro-union. Right?
Yeah.
So his answer, like, there's a contradiction there. And no one's actually called him out on it. And I want Trump to be defeated. But the contradiction there is, or at least the tension there is, you don't want to weigh in on expanding the court because you believe in the Senate process and all this stuff. But you have also said, I will never be, my integrity on supporting working people can never be challenged.
Right.
Well, it's like, listen, the Supreme Court has done so many things and promises to do so many future things to curtail the rights of workers and unions. So shouldn't your answer be like, hey, the Supreme Court passed the Janus decision. It's passed other decisions to hurt unions and hurt workers. If Donald Trump stacks the court with anti-worker, anti-union, anti-consumer people, I will support anything to make sure that the court is more democratically, small d, democratically reflective of a country that doesn't want corporations to have that much power over workers. Shouldn't that be the answer? And if that's not the answer, if the answer is, I don't want to talk about quote unquote packing the court, then aren't you saying that the process and the norm and this supposedly sacred 9 people on the court and that's it idea is more important to you than defending the rights of workers? I mean, literally, this court passed the Janus decision, which crushed the unions that he is relying on, and that he says that and I believe him, that he believes he supports to win the election, and that he believes in as sort of an economic cause. Like, what's more important? Ultimately, those two things are in tension. That's actually what the Supreme Court fight is telling us. There's the tension between Donald Trump has packed the court and the court is set at 9, and I want to support workers and unions no matter, because that's what we need to do. And those two things are in tensions, and ultimately you have to choose a side. And the problem with the Democratic Party right now is that the Democratic Party doesn't like taking sides. It doesn't like saying and declaring where it stands on the oldest question, for instance, of the labor movement, the famous question: which side are you on?
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes it that much harder, right? Given that, as you've said, they have not practiced or articulated why. I mean, as you pointed out, no one really thinks of the Supreme Court as something relevant to economic issues. I mean, people who know a lot about it do, and certainly, people like you do, but no one, even, the liberal media doesn't frame it that way. Like you were saying, we never really hear about that.
Ever. And that's the thing that blows my mind, is that the court is mostly dealing with those issues.
Right. And again, this is not to dismiss the importance of those other ones, but if you care about winning and you care about blocking people who are bad on the social issues, you need to remember how you can prevent that person from getting into power, and that's by talking about economic issues.
Yeah, well, but yes, I totally agree, but it's just not what the Democratic Party is set up to do right now.
Right.
And the Republican Party has seized on that, and they understand the dynamics of this. And it's not exactly this, but the equivalent, based on how much the Supreme Court is dealing with economic issues versus so-called social issues, it's the equivalent of having a new Federal Reserve chairman nominated. And the debate is over religious and cultural issues and not over economic issues. In other words, the Supreme Court is dealing mostly with these issues, and the political process and the media process pretends that doesn't exist. Now, of course, if you want to get one layer deeper about it, part of the the pretending has to do with, in part, I'm convinced, and I'm being conspiratorial about it, but like, if you're running MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, you're like, look, I don't care if my employees are
Right.
pro-choice, I don't care, anti-abortion. I don't care about that. So great, we'll cover that. That'll fire up our list. But I don't want to talk about. I don't want to put people on who are going to question corporate rights. I don't want to have a Supreme Court hearing that's about corporate power. We're literally multi-billion-dollar corporations. So like, the other part of this is that the media plays a role in this, the corporate legacy media, and the corporate legacy media is not exactly looking to make Supreme Court fights about corporate power.
Right.
Right. Those are spokespeople. Those are millionaires paid by billionaires who are spokespeople for and employed by and promoting corporate power. They don't want to have a Supreme Court fight that's about, the power of corporations over workers. And I'm not saying it's like literally, newsroom meetings are saying don't talk about this.
Right.
But I'm saying like that's that's the culture. Like the culture inside a giant multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation isn't one that's like, hey, let's put on the air let's have our hosts ask the Supreme Court, the senators about the Supreme Court fight. Let's have them ask questions about how this screws workers. Like they're like, that's not exactly what's in the interest of the shareholders and the corporate executives who own the network.